Hi, boys and girls. My name's Miss Keeler, and I teach first grade at Shadendale Elementary School. This is Science Activity 1 for first grade in the summer. You can find the handout that accompanies this video at the KCS website under the Student Resources tab. Today we're going to learn about the sun's energy and how it warms the earth. But before we get started, there's a few things that you can do if this video is hard to understand. First, you can turn on the closed captions if those are available. You can also adjust the speed of the video. Consider watching this video in short clips. You can always pause the video at any time and go back and re-watch it. Lastly, you might want to ask somebody at your house to watch it with you. That way you can ask questions and talk about what you're learning. So what are we going to learn today? Today we're going to focus on two questions. The first question that we're going to talk about is, how does the sun warm Earth's surfaces? And the second question is, can we keep Earth's surfaces cool on a sunny day? So let's talk and learn about that. It is finally summertime, and in the summer I love to go to the pool. Have you ever been to the pool super early in the morning? If you've ever been super early in the morning and you've jumped in the water, you may have noticed that the water is cold. But then as the day goes on and you get back in the pool, the water has warmed up. Or maybe in the summer you like to go to the beach. Have you ever walked on the sand in the early morning? If you have, you may have noticed that the sand is cool to the touch of your feet. But then as the day goes on and it gets later in the afternoon, you may have noticed that the sand is super hot and so hard to walk on because it's burning your feet. So why does this happen? Why does the pool warm up as the afternoon goes on? And why does the sand get hotter as the day goes on? That's what we're going to talk about today. If you're thinking about the sun, then you're on the right track. The sun is energy, and it shines its energy down through sunlight. And when the sunlight touches Earth's surfaces, it warms it up. So think about walking on that sandy beach. The sand isn't warming itself up. The energy from the sunlight from the sun is shining down on the sand, and that is warming up the beach or the sand. Now, let's think back to the swimming pool. If you come out early in the morning, the water has been sitting in darkness all night. So the water hasn't been able to warm up because the sunlight hasn't been hitting it. So when you jump in super early in the morning, the water might feel cool. But if you wait until the afternoon after the sun has been beating down on the water, you may notice that the water is warmer. That's because the sunlight is shining down on it. The sun's energy is warming up the water. So there's lots of different surfaces on our Earth. We have the lake, like water on a lake. We have beaches where you might find sand, but we also have soil, like in a garden, or concrete, like on a road. These surfaces are also warmed by the sun. The sunlight shines down and it warms all of these surfaces. Now, they might warm up at different times. A lake is going to take a lot longer to warm up than the concrete on a road. And even different color concrete will warm up at different speeds. Lighter colored concrete will take a little longer to warm up than a black concrete. But if the sunshine is hitting these surfaces, they're going to warm up from the sun's energy. So we've talked about how the sun warms the Earth's surfaces, so let's think about our next question. Are we able to keep Earth's surfaces cool on a sunny day? I want you to take a look at this tree, and I want you to look all around the tree, and what do you notice? You might notice a shadow underneath the tree. What is causing that shadow? Or if you look at this picture, you might see these kids standing with their shadows in the sun. So how are they making those shadows? Well, the shadows are made when sunlight is not able to go through an object. If you use an opaque or a translucent object, That means that the sunlight cannot pass through, or only a little bit of sunlight can pass through. You are able to create a shadow. When you put one of these objects in front of the sun and you create a shadow, the sunlight is unable to touch the ground underneath. So, if you were one of these kids and you stood there all day long, the grass all around the shadow would get nice and warm because the sunlight is touching it. But the ground underneath your shadow would stay nice and cool because there is no sunlight. The sun's energy is not able to warm up the ground. But now, you're not going to stand there all day to keep the ground cool. So I want you to think of some ways that you could keep the ground cool on purpose. I've thought of a few ways. One of them is by using an umbrella. If you ever go to the beach and you walk down the beach or even at the pool, you might see umbrellas. Now, I know that underneath an umbrella, there's usually a shadow. And if you sit down in that shadow, you stay cooler than if you were out in the sun. And that's because that object does not allow much sunlight through. The sun's sunlight is not able to touch the ground underneath, which keeps it nice and cool. Another way you can keep the ground cool is by using one of these tents. I've seen a lot of soccer teams who use these tents. A lot of the soccer players will stand underneath them and they'll stay nice and cool. The sun's sunlight is not able to pass through that material, which makes the ground underneath stay nice and cool. I think that this is a good idea in the hot summer days so that you can stay nice and cool underneath. So now this leads us to our activity for the day. Our activity is going to have two different parts. You can find this handout at the KCS website under the Student Resources tab. The first part of our activity today is going to be a temperature investigation. Here's what you're going to need to do. You're going to need to go outside with an adult or with permission from an adult, and you're going to have to find a spot on the concrete. That could be a sidewalk or a driveway or a front porch, but you're going to need to find a spot on the concrete that has a shady spot and a sunny spot right next to each other. And what you're going to do first is you're going to use your eyes and you're going to look at the two spots. I want you to observe, what do you notice about them? How do they look? Do they look the same or do they look different? If you look up above in the sky, what do you notice? Is there anything blocking the sun or is the sun just shining down? You can write your observations down in the boxes below. The next part of this investigation is you're going to have to use your hands, or you could also use your bare feet. But what I want you to do is I want you to put one hand on the sunny side and one hand on the concrete in the shady area. And you're going to feel what is different. What do you notice? How does the shady spot feel? How does the sunny spot feel different? Why do you think that they feel different? You can also write those observations in the boxes below. Now, as you do this investigation, I want you to really focus on what is creating the heat on the Earth's surface. You're going to have to use this information to help you with the second part of the activity today. The second part of the activity is going to be the Ice Cube Challenge. And what it's going to be is you are going to have to create a structure that slows down the melting of an ice cube. So you're going to create a structure out of outdoor materials that you find. So this is where you're going to have to really think, what could I use to slow down an ice cube? What could I do to keep Earth's surface cooler? So keep that in mind as we go through this challenge. Here's the first step. The first step is you're going to have to go back outside and you're going to have to collect some materials. Now, when you collect these materials, you can collect anything that you find outside. They could be twigs, rocks, leaves, grass, moss, or even flowers. But as you collect them, I want you to think about what you could use to slow down the melting of an ice cube. What could you do to block sunlight from reaching the ground? After you find your materials, you're going to plan on what you want to build. Now, Remember what we've learned. We have learned that in order to cool the ground, you have to block sunlight so that the sun's energy cannot warm the ground. So, how could you slow down the melting of an ice cube using that thinking? Here's my example. I decided that I was going to use some sticks to make a structure. Then I was going to use a piece of grass to tie those sticks together up at the top. And finally, I was going to put leaves up at the top to block the sunlight because I remember that in order for Earth's surface to stay cool, the sunlight cannot reach the surface. So what I did is I drew my picture and then I labeled it so I knew exactly what I was going to use. Now the next part is the fun part. You're going to actually build your structure. Here's the structure that I built. I used my sticks and I tied them up at the top, and then I put my leaves all over the structure. And if you notice, this structure blocked the sun and it was able to create a shadow down below. Now, when I was building mine, I had planned on using a piece of grass to tie the sticks together. But as I started building my structure, I realized that grass wasn't going to hold it up strong enough. So I had to go find a really thick root to tie around it. So my plan changed a little bit, and that's okay. Finally, you're going to test it. So to test it, you're going to need a few things. You're going to need 2 ice cubes, and you're also going to need a stopwatch. You can use a parent's cell phone for that. And what you're going to do is you're going to take your first ice cube and you're going to put it directly in the sun. Then you're going to take your second ice cube and you're going to put it underneath your structure. Now your structure should be in the sun, but it should be able to cast a shadow to keep the ice cube nice and shaded. Once you have done this, you're going to start your timer and you're going to see which ice cube melts faster. You can record your times in the box below. Before you get started on this, I bet you could make some really good predictions about which one's going to melt faster. I want you to think about why that ice cube would be melting faster than the one under the structure. Or do you think that the structure is going to work? So I want you to make some predictions before you get started. And finally, you're going to think about what you learned. I want you to think about, were you able to slow down the melting of the ice cube? Why did you choose the materials that you did? And if you were to do this activity over again, how would you change your structure? You can either talk about it with a friend or with a parent, or you can write what you're thinking on the back. Thank you so much for joining me today for our science activity about the sun. I am so excited and I hope that you share what you have learned. You can show us what you learned by tweeting at KCS Science. So I'll be looking forward to seeing those. I hope that you will have a great summer and stay nice and safe in the sun. Remember, if it's ever too hot and sunny, you can always use something to block the sun's light and keep yourself nice and cool. Thank you for watching.